I'm going to be harsh with this one. Going to get the lowest ranking it can. That's not good. That's unacceptable. Overall, Kino der Toten gets... Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. And of course, we have Safety Check, episode 4. Like we said in the last episode, we are skipping the Reese because we are going to class it as the Giant. So we move straight on to Black Ops 1. And we've moved to Kino der Toten, a classic map. Now, at the Cinema of the Dead, you got to treat people well. So let's go and have a look and see what we can find on this map. Starting off with our first hazard, I think we're going to have to put tripping hazards down. I mean, we got these barrier things, whatever you call them, the massive cable for the pack punch. I mean, you are going to trip over that at some point, let's be honest. There's planks everywhere, cables all over the floor. I mean, there's a whole mirror here, which isn't good. That's also a different safety concern in itself, but we'll get back to that. The floor is broken and uneven. You could definitely fall in here and twist an ankle. Chairs on the floor, massive ropes just hanging down that you could fall over those so easily. And more cables, which could be dangerous yet again. So I think it's safe to say that there's definitely some tripping hazards around this map. And I think there's, by the looks of it, a lot of them. Especially when you look at the likes of like how the floors are completely broken. Like you're tripping over these. You're definitely tripping over these. So like I said, I'm going to be harsh with this one. And tripping hazards is going to get the lowest ranking it can. It's going to get a 70. Okay, let's move on through the map. Now, I don't think there's any equipment issues that we're going to have to worry about. And there's definitely no weather elements that we're going to have to worry about. I mean, we're inside for the majority of it. And when we are outside, I mean, it's a little bit cloudy, but it's mainly sunny. I mean, so you can't complain too much. But like we were saying a minute ago, there is a lot of shrapnel around the map. When I spoke about that broken mirror, I mean, there's another one here. There's glass hanging off of that. There's glass all over the floor when you actually look at it properly. This is everywhere. That could really hurt you there. I mean, who was smashing all these mirrors up on the floor? And they thought to just leave it there as well? Like, you can't have that, dude. That's not good. That's unacceptable in my opinion. So shrapnel is definitely going to have to be another risk added to this map. And because there's quite a lot of glass, I am going to give it an overall of a 75. Now then, what else is there that could be a low tier threat? I'm seeing blood again, which obviously isn't good. That to me screams hygiene issues, because let's be honest, if you're going to the cinema, you're going to be eating popcorn, drinking drinks, eating other sorts of snacks. You don't want blood all around you. You want to be in a nice clean area. You don't want all this blood on the floor and around you. That's just not good enough. Mind you, apart from the blood, there's not much else to make it a massively big risk. And I mean, someone has left the bins out for quite a while by looks. They are gathering flies. That could be another hygiene issue. Someone's left this bin lid open and left the trash out on the side instead of in it. That's never good. And yeah, people just seem to be leaving their bins all over the place outside instead of actually putting them away. So it's not going to get the highest rating when it comes to hygiene, but I am going to give it an overall of 80. I might have given it slightly lower if the bin bags were completely broken and split apart, but they're not. So we're going to give it that. And if I'm being honest, I think that's mainly it in terms of low tier risks. So we're going to move on to our next category, which is the medium tier. And I'm already noticing a few medium tier risks here, if I'm being honest. First things first, we're going to talk about the building stability, because overall it doesn't look too bad, you know. I mean, you're looking around here, everything looks pretty solid. You have got the odd bit and bob where like the ceiling's falling apart, but not terrible. But my main concern with the stability of this building is this area, the main room. Look at the state of this part. I mean, this has completely collapsed. So that part has to be completely out of bounds, in my opinion. I mean, look, everything that was holding it up, keeping it stable, is just completely gone. It doesn't look good. Even on this side, it's starting to fall off as well. Imagine if you were sitting there and that started crumbling apart. You wouldn't be in a good spot. Again, a tiny little, I say little, but a little hole in the roof. Not anything too serious, luckily. And there is another one there, but again, not causing us problems. Like we said, it's this section here that's the main issue. I mean, look, these guys would literally be hanging off the edge over there. So building stability is definitely going to have to go down as a risk. But I'm going to give it an overall of a 60. only because the majority of them don't actually affect it too bad. And the parts that are affected, like here, you can't actually get up. So we're going to let them off a little. Apart from the building stability, there are a couple of other medium tier threats that I've noticed, and both of them relate to the traps. I mean, we have more electric traps, which, you know, you're not going to be able to run through these. That is going to hurt. That's going to kill you or give you some brain damage of some sorts. On top of this, I have noticed that this is constantly sparking, which isn't good because, you know, what if you catch that? Oh my god, it's right above my head. What if I didn't notice that in time and that electrocuted me? Not good. Not good, man. So electrocution is going to have to go down, and I am going to have to give it a rating of 50. On top of this, and going back to the traps, I'm just going to pull this and let you see for yourself. I think that would hurt if you walk through it. Let's be honest, that's really going to hurt. That is a high grade burn if I've ever seen one. And whilst I'm not really feeling like walking through it right now, I'm going to take a guess and believe that that is going to hurt me. So again, we are going to give a 50 for high grade burns. Now, apart from the medium tier and the low tier risks, I can't really find any major faults when it comes to high grade risks. Now, there's no explosions on, there's no chance of drowning. And whilst you could argue that I guess if you did fall off here, you could impale yourself on something, there's nothing like majorly sharp looking that could really hurt you. The only thing that I could think of is that you could be crushed. And it comes back to this. What if I'm under this and something fell off and crushed me? That would kill me. These things here are way too heavy to not kill me. So I am going to actually give one high tier risk for this map, and it is going to be being crushed by objects, and it's going to get an overall of a 20, because whilst it could happen, there's only a few instances where I think it possibly could, like if you're exactly here, or if you're standing exactly here, or if you're standing exactly under here. And how many times are you actually going to be standing there? Not too many, and that's why I'm going to give it a 20. Okay, now that we found all the hazards, of course we've got to move on to safety features. And the question is, does Kino have anything to keep you safe? Now, if I'm being honest, I really struggled to find any sort of safety features when it came to this map. The best I could find was railings. There is no sort of PPE, no sort of warning signs, and no fire safety anywhere. The only thing, like I said, are railings. We've got the railings all along the stairs, which always helps. And I'm looking like if you were up here, you've got all the railings up here, which keep you inside the areas and safe, which is always a benefit. Of course, there's no railings here, but that's completely destroyed, so that's not a surprise. But all the railings going up the stairs and up the top are still intact, pretty much, apart from like that little break there, but we're not going to bother taking points off for that. And if I'm honest, this part is blocking you off from where the danger lies, so I guess I should add railings as a safety addition to the map. So it does have one addition, which is nice, but if I'm honest, I think it's actually going to let it down a bit overall with the rating, considering it's only got one. But we are going to give Kino der Toten a +5 for safety railings. And with that all said and done, that is everything checked on Kino der Toten. Just to recap, as always, we have tripping hazards with a rating of 70, shrapnel with a rating of 75, hygiene with a rating of 80, building stability with a rating of 60, electrocution with a rating of 50, high grade burns with a rating of 50, and the chance of being crushed with a rating of 20. Overall, this gives us a mean total of 58. But of course, we have the one safety feature as well, just about, which was the railings, which gives us a +5, meaning that overall, Kino der Toten gets a 63 out of 100. Now, this was nowhere near as high as I thought it was going to be when it comes to safety. But when I looked deeper into it, I'm not surprised, to be honest. This map is not as safe as I thought it would be. But either way, like I said, that does mean this map does get an overall rating of 63, and that actually makes it the third highest rated map on this list, which actually makes it fall below Nacht der Toten by 3 points. Now, when you think about it, you'd think Nacht der Toten isn't exactly safe. If you go back to the first video, you can remember what it looked like, but it did have 2 types of safety equipment in it, which gave it a massive boost. And unfortunately, like we said, that is where Kino der Toten lacked. It didn't have any safety measures realistically that could have boosted it up. I mean, if it had even one more safety feature in the map, it would have actually got an overall rating of 68 and would have only been 2 points off our safest map overall. But unfortunately, these guys didn't think this through, and that is why it's going to go in the needs work category. But hey, this is why we do these things. We got to make sure these maps are safe. And sometimes the maps that you think are safe aren't actually as safe as you thought they were. And that is why we're here. But this is the end of today's video. The next map that we will be ranking will actually be none other than 5. And if 5 isn't safer, then I do not know what is going on in the zombies world. But I think 5 has the potential to be one of the safest maps we've played so far. That really surprised me. I thought it was going to be really safe. 5 actually gets a grand total of... Hello everybody. Welcome back to another video. Today we have safety check once again, and because we did Kino last time, that means we are at none other than the presidential boys' hometown, the Pentagon, also known as 5. In my opinion, this has got to be one of the safest maps going, and I'll be surprised if it's not. But that's why we're doing this series. So let's have a look and let's actually see how safe this map is. So I'm having a look around this first room. There's not much up in this first part, let's be honest. I mean, the main room itself is pretty tidy, pretty office based, nothing really going on in this room. Now we can have a little look. It's a bit messy. You can see there's a few things you could trip over there, a few blood spots. That could definitely be concerning for certain. But apart from a few blood splats here and there and a few things on the floor, I don't think it's quite enough to justify giving it any hazards yet, only because we still have downstairs to have a look at. But before we do that, I will also say there's a lot of cigarettes just burning away around the map, especially in the offices, like here and here, more here, big cigar. I mean, they're all over the place. You can see the smoke from that one, and there's another one there, and these have all been left unattended, which is concerning in my opinion. That could potentially be a hazard. I don't know what we would be classing it as, but it could. And if I'm honest, I think I'm going to make a whole new category for this, because whilst it could cause a fire, it's not actually causing a fire as of yet. But I think it could be a fire hazard. So this is going to be the first time we ever use a miscellaneous category, and it's going to be for fire hazards. Now, luckily, they are all in the ashtrays, so they're not causing too much of a hassle. But I am going to give it an overall of a 90. And the reason it's given so high is solely because it could cause an issue, but it is contained. So there is an element of danger, but nothing too serious. But now I'm going to identify some low tier threats. Now, we said about a few things on the floor upstairs. Well, we come downstairs and all of these have been tipped over, which you could trip over for certain. I mean, it's definitely not meant to look like that. There's chairs left all over the walkway, which you could fall over, which isn't good. I mean, who has left all of these here, man? I know we're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, but you can't just leave stuff everywhere on the floor. I mean, this one, I nearly fell over this one walking past. I mean, if you look at me walking past here, you can hardly see it unless you're really looking. You could trip over that big time. There's also like a massive door here. Like, you could definitely trip over that. So there's definitely an element of tripping hazards around the map. And I didn't even notice before because it's so dark in here. But look, there are cables along the floor. You can fall over these. These need to be covered up, man. That is risky. So I think tripping hazards is definitely going to have to go in there. And I think it's going to get an overall of an 80. Now, when we were on the top floor, there was one other low tier threat that I mentioned, and that has to do with the hygiene of this place. We saw blood splatters on the top floor, and that hasn't changed here because we've got more blood all over the stairs and the walls. I mean, there's a dead body there, and that's not a zombie. That's never good. And if we come downstairs, I mean, I don't have to say much. Look at this. Blood everywhere. I'm also going to have to count shrapnel. I'm sorry, because look at that. That is sharp as hell, and that will hurt you. I didn't even notice that before. Again, blood all over the place. There is plenty of blood for there, and dead bodies. I mean, come on, man. This isn't good. This is really bad. Really, really bad. So hygiene is definitely going to have to get the lowest ranking it can, for certain. And that's without even seeing this. I mean, this dude has been cut open and then just left on the table. There are flies everywhere. There are dead bodies piling up all over the place in here. All over the place here. Just left here to rot, man. And the same with dead animals as well. Look, they've just been killed and left here to rot. This is really bad hygiene. I mean, this guy just got left here as well, and the flies are all on him and he's not even dead. Okay, he's dead. So hygiene, in my opinion, is actually really bad in this place. So bad that I don't know if I can give it a 70. I think it deserves lower than a 70 if you're asking me. Because on the surface, it looks nice and clean. But down here, it is not. You know what? I'm going to break a little rule here. I'm going to give hygiene a 50, even though it's a low-grade risk. And speaking of low-grade risks, which we just saw, there's a lot of glass on the floor. I mean, it's everywhere. It's over here as well. And like I just mentioned a minute ago, this is really sharp. That could really hurt somebody. There is glass everywhere, guys. This isn't good. This is real bad for shrapnel. So I think it's going to get a 70 as well. Okay, I think that is it for low-tier risks. We're now going to go on to medium-tier risks. Now, I don't think there's a risk of falling. Definitely not a risk of high-grade burns, suffocation, vehicles, or building stability. I mean, this building's pretty solid. Let's be honest. It's built in the Pentagon. It's going to be solid. But one thing I definitely want to mention is they have these supposedly metal detectors on the first floor. But these are anything but metal detectors, my dude. Yeah, don't let these things fool you, because these are electric traps. If you walk through here, you're a dead man walking. There's no coming back from this. That's an electrocution fault. And if electricity kills you, it's bad. It's getting an overall of a 50. Now, I was just having another look around the Fallout shelter after trying to find some more medium tier threats. And one thing I did notice, even though I can't actually understand what it says, is that in this shelter, there's actually these big types of canister things. And whilst it's in a Russian, I believe, and I cannot understand it, there are chemical hazard signs on them. So that can only indicate one thing. It is a hazardous chemical, which is actually one of our medium tier threats. And as you can see, there are loads more of them everywhere. So that could be very risky in my opinion. I mean, what if you're going around shooting and you accidentally hit one of those with one of your shots? I mean, there's loads more of them here as well. They are everywhere. And if anyone can understand what that says, please tell me, because I have a feeling it's not good. So it is going to be another medium tier risk, and it's going to be chemical hazards for 50. But apart from that, I don't think there are any actual high tier threats in this area. Yes, you got the chemical hazards, which I guess you could classify as high tier realistically, but we have put them in a medium tier because it can vary so much. So this might actually be a first on safety check where we don't have any high tier risks. And I want to make a new rule for this series, starting from now, because this is the first time we've ever had this. But I think if you do not have a high tier risk on the map, then I think it is worth giving the map a +5 solely for not having anything that can basically kill you straight away. I'm going to implement this for this map. Let me know if you think I should or shouldn't do it. But I think from now on, going forwards, every time a map doesn't have a high tier risk, I'm going to give it a +5 as a reward. And speaking of rewards, we now have to talk about any safety features that are on these maps. And the first one I spotted straight away was safety sign. On the electric trap, there is a warning sign, which is good. And I know we spoke about these chemical hazards containers, but they have warning signs on them. And if you go into the room that has them all, they have the chemical warning signs. So that is a good example of how safety signs can be effective, in my opinion. So for that reason, we are going to put down safety signs as a safety element of 5. So it is going to get a +5 for its safety signs. Top of this, if we come into this room here, there could, I guess, be an element of falling if these safety railings weren't in place. So I believe, once again, this map should get a +5 for safety railing, because you cannot fall off this no matter what. So that's a good sign. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, overall, this map has been pretty impressive, yet has surprised me at the same time, because I thought it was going to be really safe. But in reality, there were some issues with this map still that could cause it to get a low ranking. But just so we are clear, the safety risks that we identified were as followed. We had our first ever miscellaneous risk with fire hazard at 90, tripping hazards in the low tier at 80, hygiene normally in low tier but has been given a special rating of 50 because of how bad it was, shrapnel at 70, electrocution at 50, and chemical hazards at 50. So when you put all of those together, you actually get a mean rating of 65 5. But, ladies and gentlemen, we have 2 safety features for this map, being safety signs and railing, which gives it a plus 10 on top of the score, meaning that overall it gets boosted up to 75. But we're also not done there, because I said earlier on in the video, if there is a map that doesn't have any high risk hazards on it, then it's going to get a plus 5. So that means it does not finish with a 75 out of 100. 5 actually gets a grand total of 80 out of 100. This makes 5 our safest map so far by a mile. It's actually not even close to any of the other maps in terms of safety, which is crazy. But again, I did say that I would be surprised if 5 didn't get a high rating overall. But yeah, this really surprised me. And because it got an 80, that actually means that it is ranked in our safe category, the first one of its kind, and also, like I said, the highest rated map so far. Ironically, the 5th map that we rank, being 5, also gets our highest ranking. What can I say? That really surprised me. A map that realistically should have been up there amongst one of the safest actually still had some quite big issue when it came to it. But that is why we do this series, because we need to find out the answers to these questions. And if you want to figure out if the other maps are as safe or more dangerous than 5, then leave a like on the video and subscribe for more, because we will be doing this throughout all of Black Ops 1 all the way to Cold War. And who knows, by the time this is done, we might even be doing it with Black Ops 6. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another episode of Safety Check. Last week was 5. This week it is Ascension, the Russian Cosmodrome. Let's see what it has in store for us. Okay, here we are. A bit dark in here, which could be a bit of a concern. That could also be a bit of a concern for a safety check, you know, but we'll get back to that. We want to go through the smaller hazard first. But before we do that, I want to get a bit of light. I need the place to look a bit brighter. Much better. Right, now we can look at safety in this place. The first thing I'm going to spot out is there's a lot of things that you could fall over here. Like these, for example. They look quite big and trippable. Again, you got more of them here. More big tripping hazards. We got random cables all over the floor, which ain't great. You could definitely fall over those. Tires on the corner. I mean, you're less likely to fall over these, but I guess you could in theory. A few more cables here you can fall over, which ain't great. Pallets randomly left on the floor, not good as well. More pallets left on the floor, never a good sign. I mean, come on, guys. You guys need to clear up here. But yeah, I would say tripping hazards is definitely on there. I'm not going to rate it very high because I'm taking into account the size of the map. And for the size of the map, the amount of tripping hazards it does have isn't too bad. So I'm going to give it a 90 out of 100. Next up on the list, I'm actually going to go with hygiene, I think. I've had a little look around. Again, it's not terrible, but there is a lot of blood on the floor. Like there's blood there, and there's blood here, more in here, loads dragged across the floor. And this is just the starting room. Everywhere along the walkways. I mean, there's a foot there. That's never hygienic. And there's, yeah, this guy just chilling. Dead body on the table, collecting flies. Not great. So hygiene is definitely going to be an issue here. I can't lie. I think if it wasn't for the dead bodies, it would have got a 90. But I think because of the dead bodies, it's going to have to get an 85. Because again, taking into consideration the size compared to the amount there is, I'd say that's about right. Next up, I'm looking around and there is, from what I can see, some small fires around certain parts of the map. I mean, there's fire here, which I can't get to, which is good, but I can get to this part. Nothing major, but that could burn me slightly. Another small one here that could hurt me. There is one there, but that's a separate hazard, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Don't you worry. So yeah, there's definitely a chance for some low tier burns. Again, there's not a massive amount, so I don't think I can put it too high up in terms of score. I'm going to give it a total of 80 out of 100. But I think that will do for the low tier hazards that we have. The next category we're going to look at now, medium tier. And I've already spotted a few medium tier hazards. Trust me. And first off, where we're talking about high tier burns. That is a bigger fire. That could definitely hurt. This is a bigger fire. That could definitely hurt more. So there are a few areas which could really cause us some damage. But I am going to be generous because there are only the 2 areas I'm looking at right now. Apart from the one that I mentioned around the corner here, which I can't actually get to too much. So I'm not going to be too concerned about that. But high tier burns is going to get a 60 out of 100. just to prove my point even more for high tier burns, I mean, look in there. You wouldn't be able to walk through that without massively burning your body. So yeah, we definitely need to put high grade burns on here. Now, the next medium tier risk that I have spotted already is one that we actually haven't come across yet. And it has to do with these bad boys right here. Yes, forklifts. The medium tier risk that we have never used before is vehicle. Now, we all know that vehicles can be dangerous. I mean, this one looks like it was crashed into the corner here and they dropped everything on the pallet. So our drivers clearly don't know what they're doing. On top of that, there's just a randomly parked forklift here. It's been parked on an uneven surface where the barrels have fallen off. That's not good. That could be explosive for all I know, and it could blow me to smithereens. And there's another one here. Just left equipment on the end of the forks, parked in the middle of the road. I mean, do these guys know anything about parking these things? I mean, I don't want to brag, but I actually have a forklift license, you know? That's all I'm saying. And in my training, I was told to never, ever leave a forklift in the middle of the road. It has to be put away in a certain parking spot. It's just not on, man. So for the first time ever, we are going to put vehicles in a medium tier risk category, and I'm going to give it a total of a 55 out of 100. And the reason they get 55 is mainly because this one looks like it has been crashed into this spot and everything has fallen off. So that's not good. Last but not least, for our medium tier category, we are going to go with falling. Now, we have always talked about the importance of safety rails in map. So why is this bit broken here? I mean, look at the size of this drop. That could really hurt if I didn't have Jug. The same situation here. There's a massive hole in the wall. I could just fall down here. I did. Again, if I didn't have Jug, that would have hurt. You cannot just have holes around buildings where people could fall off and hurt themselves. That's not good enough. So falling is going to end up in our medium tier risk category, and it's going to get a grand total of 55. And now I know I did just say that was the last one for the medium tier risk category, and I was about to move on to the high tier risk, but I have just noticed that there are a bunch of cables here that actually have sparks coming on. That's not good. And on top of that, there's a load of glass here as well, which I could hurt myself on. So I think we're going to have to add both shrapnel and electrocution to the list. Now, these are the only areas I've seen glass and the chance to be electrocuted on, and they're not massive, so I'm actually going to put electrocution a bit higher than normal. I'm going to class it as a low tier, and I think both of these are going to get a 90. With that said and done, we can now move on to the high tier risks. Oh my god, that's a big fire. Thank god we put high grade burns in. Just want to test to see if this would kill me. Will it push me out of the way, or will I die? Okay, so that's a high tier risk. I think we've just found ourselves our first miscellaneous risk of the map. I could put it under being crushed, I guess, but this is very specific to Ascension. The lander, I'm going to skip right ahead and put a miscellaneous category in here. The landers are going to be a safety risk. And actually, considering that killed me straight away with Jug, that's going to get a 10. That might be one of the lowest scores that has ever been received on a safety check so far. All right, next up, I found our first high risk tier, and it's going to actually be these vehicles. As you can see, they got signs on them, and the signs indicate that they're flammable. And if they're flammable, that means there's a chance that they can explode. I mean, this is one lorry here, for example. There's plenty of barrels that could be flammable and explode. And the more I go around the map, there's more and more barrels just out in the open. I mean, there's more there. There's more there. There's more barrels. The barrels are just everywhere on this map. And just to make my point even more, like we spotted out earlier, this lorry is actually on fire. So this has exploded. And can I say, driver, that doesn't look comfortable, but we'll carry on. Another lorry on fire, and there's petrol all over the floor. You can tell by the discolorization. And the fact that it's leaking. Explosions is definitely a high risk factor here, and it's going to get a 20 because that is so likely to happen. I have a feeling, guys, that this map is actually going to be one of the lowest rated maps so far. Even worse than the likes of Shinonuma. I have a feeling, guys. Just in time. Another high tier safety risk is about to happen. All I'm going to say is, did you hear all those explosions happening right now? Those are our good old monkey friends dropping in, say hello. There they are. Look at them. And how do they get here? They spawn in on their good old little spaceship pod thing. And one of those could easily fall on your head. And while they're busy stealing my perks, it's quite easy to get distracted and end up... Excuse me, guys. Get off my juggernaut! Oh, yada. Yeah, I just got distracted by the monkeys bit. But like I was saying, these things could easily distract you, like I just mentioned, and you could actually get crushed by their landing pods. It's quite unlikely that you would, but to add to that, I did notice things like this. That could just fall on your head. So being crushed is going to be added. And I think I'm going to give it a 30 out of 100. Yeah, I think that's all of the high tier risks. I do have 2 more miscellaneous risks to show you on this map though. This is the first time I've had 3 miscellaneous risks on one map. Normally I hardly even get 1, let alone 3. But can you guess what the second one of this map is going to be? Yes, it is this monstrosity of a machine. Now, I can't remember exactly what they're called, but basically it is spin around really fast. Everyone that's played this map knows what it does. Let's be honest. It's basically to get astronauts used to going up in space and living in space, you know, the journey up and whatnot. And let's be honest, as we all know, if this thing hits you while it spins, it's gonna kill you. For that reason, I can't not give it anything but a 15 out of 100. I mean, we're just about to see exactly what it does in action. Look at it spin. That's gonna hurt you. Imagine if that bonked you on the head. You'd be dead. And last but not least, our final issue of the day, if these zombies let me do it, there we go. Rocket explosion. And it only cost me my life to do it. Look at all the debris, all the fire, everything that went everywhere on that map. There's not many places where you wouldn't die if that was you. And it was worth losing the ray gun just to see. A massive rocket of that size exploding all over this map is guaranteed to kill you. Let's be honest. So I think I'm going to have to give it none other than a 10. So that means we found every single issue with this map that I can tell of. So now we're going to see if there's any safety features. And straight away, I'm seeing some safety features. We got warning signs like hazards, electric hazards to be specific. More electricity hazard signs, which is always good. I don't know what that says, so I'm just going to skip it. We have flammable signs on the trucks. Go away. Flammable signs on the trucks to let us know that they are hazardous and they could explode in your face and burn. I guess this is a warning sign of sorts for this thing. I mean, you definitely have to be aware that this is going to kill you. Then there's another warning flame sign there. I don't really know what that one is, but it's a warning sign. And there's more flammable signs here, which is always good. So Ascension is definitely going to get a +5 for safety signs. Now, I know I did criticize it earlier for some falling spots like this one, but I must admit there is another safety feature, which is railings. Yes, there are some areas that aren't very good or are broken, but the majority of the railings are intact. Like these railings here are fine. The railings on these stairs are perfectly fine. And for the majority of the railings on these parts here, they are also fine, apart from this tiny little bit here. So even though there is a slight issue here with this one, I am going to give it a +5 for railing. Okay, so that is all of the hazards that we found on this map. And just to list them off, because there are quite a few. We have tripping hazards with a 90, hygiene with an 85, low tip burns with an 80, high grade burns with a 60, vehicles with a 55, falling with a 55, electrocution with a 90, shrapnel with a 90, lunar landers with a 10, explosions with a 20, being crushed with a 30, aero trims. I know that's not the actual term for what that thing is, but that's the closest to it, kind of. So I'm going to call it that anyway, with a 15, and rocket explosion with a 10. Now, if we put all of those scores together and combine them to get the mean total, Ascension gets an overall rating of a 53 out of 100. That is so low. And that is because it got a grand total of 13 different risks. It's definitely failing at this point, but we do have to take into consideration that it did have 2 types of safety features on the map as well, being safety signs for a +5 and railings for a +5, meaning that overall Ascension gets a grand total of 63 out of 100. But I'm not done with this map yet, because to have 13 different hazards is ridiculous. Let's put it this way. Kino, that has the same rating, only had a grand total of 7 hazards. That's nearly double. So we are going to add yet another rule. If you get over 10 different hazards on your map, I'm going to deduct you 5 points, meaning that Ascension gets dropped down from 63 to 58. But boy, I'm still not done yet. 3 of those hazards were high tier risks. And then an extra 3 of those hazards were miscellaneous risks, which can be ranked anywhere, but all 3 of them ranked below 20 points. So I'm going to add another rule where if you get over 5 high tier risks. So any risk that is below 30 points when ranking, I'm going to give it another -5. Now, it sounds like I'm hating on Ascension, but if you're not going to be safe, then I'm going to rank you down for it. So even though Ascension got a 63, it has actually been put straight back down to 53 out of 100 in total. This now becomes our lowest ranked map ever on this series. Just in time for these monkeys to come in. Look, see how close that was to nearly hit me then? That's what I was talking about earlier. So yes, I might be being pretty ruthless with this map, but I'm sorry, if you have that many issues, you need to be pegged down a tier. The health inspector will definitely be back to check on you because you are now, Ascension, the lowest rated map on our tier list. But that is going to do us for today. We have ranked yet another map. Next up on the list, we have none other than Call of the Dead. Now, I want to know your predictions for Call of the Dead. What do you reckon it's going to get? Where do you reckon it's going to be on the overall ranking? Let me know in the comments down below. Now, just before you all leave, if you would like to leave a like on the video, that would be greatly appreciated. It means so much to me, and it gives me the indication that you guys do actually like this series and want it to continue. And just one final push from me, I've set myself a goal to get 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you guys could be generous enough to hit that subscribe button, again, I would greatly appreciate it. But apart from that, I'm going to leave you with our newest, worst rated map of Call of Duty Zombies. Signing off until next time. I hope you have enjoyed, and I shall see you later. Hello everybody, today we are on the movie set of Call of the Dead, and we have celebrities on set today. So you know we've got to make it extra secure for when they're fighting zombies. So let's see how safe Call of the Dead actually is. Here we are, Call of the Dead. I can imagine there's going to be a few safety issues. And the first one I'm going to point out straight away is definitely going to be weather elements. I mean, look how foggy this area is. You can hardly see what's in front of you. I mean, what's stopping you in these conditions from just accidentally running into something and hurting yourself? I mean, I could accidentally run up here, not see this, I could fall off. Not that it's going to let me, you know, but you get my point. Not to mention that it is really, really snowy, so it's probably freezing cold as well. And let's be honest, we saw their outfits that they were wearing whilst filming, and they were not winter clothes. So in my opinion, that's very dangerous. And that's why it's going to be our first safety risk on this map. And weather elements is going to have to get an overall rating of a 70 out of 100. Now, you would think on a map like this, with the kind of weather that we have, there would be no concerns when it came to any type of burns, any type of fire. But that's where you're wrong, because the first thing I noticed when I come into the cafeteria area, the chill and eat your food area, whatever you want to call it, is fire. There is fire right there burning on the ship. It's not a lot, but it is enough to burn you. So I am actually going to give another risk here for low tier burn. Just in case that wasn't enough, there is more fire here. So there is definitely a case to be made for low tier burn. But because it's not a massive amount, I am going to give it an 85 out of 100. On to our next low tier risk. And I think you're already going to guess what it is, as you can see right in front. There's a couple, to be honest, that we can mention. But the first one we're going to mention are all the cables here, which of course could be a tripping hazard. I mean, I don't even know if these are cables. They might be ropes. But either way, this is a massive pile that you could get your feet tangled up in and fall over. And it doesn't stop there, because there's another massive pile here, and there's another massive pile here. Top of that, there's pallets left on the floor, which is never good. More pallets left on the floor, more cables or rope, and more pallets. Never good. All I'm going to say is I wouldn't want to be someone working on this ship, because there is too much to trip over. So for that reason, I'm going to give tripping hazards as a 75 out of 100. Whilst we're on the ship, I am also going to mention that there are a few bits of blood stains around the area. I mean, it looks like someone's dragged a body over here. Clearly more blood on the floor all around these broken pallets that I also mentioned. Even more blood going on around here as well, which is never good. And this is in the top parts of the ship as well. Like I said, we got more blood in the cafeteria area, which is never good, because this is where you eat your food. So hygiene is definitely going to have to be an issue. It's not awful compared to some of the maps we've done already, so I'm not going to rank it way too high on this. but I am going to give it an 85. Okay, so I think that does it for all of our low tier risk categories. So we're going to move on to our medium tier risk categories. And the first thing I notice behind George and all of these lovely little electric crawler zombies actually is electricity coming out of the roof. I mean, look here. This is definitely not safe. That catches your head, you know you're going to feel that. That is going to definitely hurt. And whilst there's not many areas that have that issue, that is a major concern, in my opinion. So we are definitely going to have to mark it down. We're going to have to mark electrocution down as an overall rating of a 50 out of 100. Okay, there are definitely a few other medium tier risks that I want to mention now. And the next one isn't major, but it is still a medium tier risk. And that relates to the possibility of falling. Now, like I said, these ones aren't major compared to other ones we've seen. But for example, there is a hole in the floor here. You could fall down this. That could hurt. I know it obviously doesn't when I do this now, but shut up. I know what I'm talking about. Another example is on this part of the ship. I mean, you could just fall down here where it's broken. Definitely fall down here. You can see that hurt me. And last but not least, while it is small, you could just slip on the ice here and fall down here, which would also hurt. So whilst it's not a major problem, it is still a problem that needs to be fixed. And that's why falling is going to get an overall rating of 60 out of 100. Okay, there is one more elephant in the room that we must address in the medium tier risk, and that is, of course, building stability. Now, these boats are clearly shipwrecked, considering half of it's torn off. I mean, look at that massive gap there. Let's be honest. How safe is a ship that is torn in half? That is not safe. I mean, realistically, what's stopping this from just tipping over and killing a bunch of people while we're on here? Top of that, the pathways that we got to walk on are snapping and falling apart. That's not good. And part of the ships are even underwater. I mean, look at this. This is completely broken here, and there is a bunch of water just all in the bottom of the ship. And that's just the ship. We have other issues, like in and around the lighthouse. Like we mentioned earlier, there's a hole in the floor here. You can see there's holes in the wall, which isn't good. How much is that going to be affecting the stability of the overall building? You've got exposed walls here and here, half of it missing. Luckily, the lighthouse is in pretty good condition on the outside, although half of the stairs are broken on this top part, which isn't good. So there's no way to access the top half of the lighthouse. And we can't also forget that the little outhouse here as well, whilst does look stable on the walls, is missing the majority of its roof, which isn't good. So building stability is definitely an issue, even if the main lighthouse is okay. But it still is a major concern. So I am going to have to give building stability an overall rating of 45 out of 100. But I think that is the end for all the medium tier risks, which is good. Now we have the luxuries of looking at any high tier risk. And if I'm honest, there's only one high tier risk that I have identified so far in this map. And I think you guys also know what it is. Yes, it is the water. This map has a lot of water everywhere. And it's pretty deep, all things considering, you know. So what could happen if you're in water? You could drown. And nobody wants people drowning on the job. It's not a good look for employers. And because the possibility of drowning is quite high due to the amount of water that is around the map, we are going to have to put it pretty high. We are going to have to give it a 10 out of 100. And just in case you think I'm done with the water, there is this other concerning issue that I'm having right now. As you can see, my screen is fully freezing up, meaning the water is that cold that I am going to freeze. I mean, I'm not going to put myself in any further. Maybe at the end of the video, I'll show you how bad it gets, just as an FYI to how bad the water is. But freezing in that water is definitely a major concern. And it's our first miscellaneous category of the video. And I think because it can literally kill you, it is going to have to get what I believe to be our lowest rating so far on any safety check, which is an overall rating of 5 out of 100. That's how bad that water could get and how cold it really is. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are nearly there. We have one last concern, and that relates to this good old little thing here, the launch. If I jump myself on here, this thing will throw me across the map. Yeah, and whilst it looks like I had a safe landing, that could break my legs. Nobody wants their legs broken, and that could definitely go wrong. I mean, that has a slight issue with it, and it could throw you over there, it could throw you over there, it could throw you up there. You could just splat into the lighthouse for all I know. So it is a massive safety concern. and it is going to have to get an overall rating of 40. I would put it lower, but as of now, it's not hurting anyone and it's showing no signs of damage. But I'm also not putting it higher because there is that concern there. Now, I believe that is everything for safety risks that we've identified. So now we can have a look at safety features. And if I'm honest, there is only one safety feature that I have identified on this map, and it is all of the safety railings. There are plenty going up to the lighthouse, which is very good to see. All around the lighthouse as well, you can see all the railings are intact and pretty good when it comes to their condition. Even in and around the lighthouse, all of the stairs have really good railings. None broken, no concern whatsoever. And on top of that, you can see on the ship, they also have safety railings everywhere, which is very handy. So we are going to give Call of the Dead a +5 for safety railings. One thing I guess you could mention is the fact that they do have these rings to protect people if they ended up going overboard when drowning. They could be quite vital, I guess, if you ended up falling in the water. There's more of them here, which is good, and there's more of them here. So there are plenty of them in case you did fall overboard. Mind you, you would have to be pretty dumb to fall overboard on a ship that's not moving, but that's a different story. But my issue is that enough to justify giving it a +5 overall? Personally, I don't think so, considering that's the only safety feature the ship has. But either way, I think it is worth adding it. But instead of giving it a +5, I'm going to give it a +2, or life buoys, whatever you want to call them. I like calling them life rings, but it's going to get a +2 either way. But overall, that does conclude all the features for this map. So looking into that, we have the following risks. We have weather elements with a rating of 70, low-tip burns with a rating of 85, tripping hazards with a rating of 75, hygiene with a rating of 85, electrocution with a rating of 50, falling with a rating of 60, building stability with a rating of 45, drowning with a rating of 10, freezing with a rating of 5, and launcher with a rating of 40. Now, if you put all of these together, you end up with a mean rating overall of 52.5 out of 100. But as we mentioned, we do have two safety features on the map, which was safety railings for +5 and lifebuoy rings for a +2, which puts us up to 59.5, which is a bit better. But you've also got to remember the rule we made up last week, where if we had more than 10 risks on the map, then that map automatically gets a -5. So overall, an overall ranking of 54.5 out of 100. If I'm honest, that's kind of what I expected from this map. I didn't expect to see major results when it came to Call of the Dead. There is too much going on with it. But that does also mean that Call of the Dead is our second lowest rated map out of the series so far, meaning that it is only Ascension that is beating it, and it goes in the at-risk category. That means out of the 7 maps we've done so far, 3 of them are now in the at-risk category, which isn't great. These map designers are definitely going to have some work to do fixing the issues on these maps. And just before anyone in the comments mentions George, our boy George, yes, he is a bit of a risk, but I just couldn't justify putting him in there. I mean, he's deadly, but realistically, he just wants to get his film shot and put in the cinemas. So, you know, I'm not going to blame him for that. But overall, that is the end of the video. We have done yet another map. I hope you have all enjoyed, and if you have, like and subscribe for more, and I'm going to end the video with me being completely frozen over. I hope you have enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one. Shangri-La, a stunning map. The beauty that this map beholds is up there, in my opinion, when it comes to zombie map design. But don't let the beauty of this map fool you. This map can be dangerous. So that is why your favorite health inspector is once again back to go through exactly how dangerous this map can be. So let's get down to Shangri-La and see what we are working with. Here's one thing we know we have to do before we even start this map. Much better. Okay, safety check. Here we go. Boy oh boy, have we got a lot to unpack on this one. And honestly, the first thing I want to talk about is actually down in the mines. And it's all the equipment that's been left everywhere. And I'm talking little things like shovels just left out with buckets, all the way up to heavy equipment like cement mix. It's just been left on the side here. Cap open with all the petrol exposed to potential flames and stuff. There's another one here with the petrol exposed with a light right next to it, which catch ablaze easily. And even small things like this wheelbarrow thing just tipped down on the side with stuff in it. That's not good. So to me, that is as clear and obvious as it gets. Whoever the site manager is for this place is not looking after the equipment. So I have to jot it down. And it's going to be our first low tier risk with a rating of 85. The next one on the list is actually going to be tripping hazards. Excuse me, sir. But as you can tell, there's plenty of rubble around, stuff like wheels left on the side which could fall down, loads of wood and little rocks, and even these little, I want to say scaffolding feet that you could trip over just in the floor. They've even left their tools on the floor, which is exactly what I was talking about. It's just not good. On top of that, the rails are also exposed, so you could easily trip over these rails because there's no safety signs or nothing to prevent you from tripping over them. And even small things like this rope being just left out on the floor. Not a good look, and that is why it's going to get a 75 out of 100. Right, for this next one, you know we're in a cave, so the hygiene isn't always going to be perfect, let's be honest. And I can sympathize for that, sure. But what I can't sympathize for are dead bodies just left piled up on this cart. And it's not just dead human bodies, it's animal bodies as well. You can tell these things are going to stink. I mean, God knows how long they've been left here. They're collecting flies, I can tell you that much. And well, if that wasn't enough for you, there's dead bodies on the floor still, which isn't good. I mean, there's another one here. This guy's been impaled. Like, that's not good. And more of them here. Plenty of dead bodies around. And that's why the hygiene levels have got to be flagged up for this place. And I think the hygiene, because of all the dead bodies around, is going to have to get a 70 out of 100. Luckily for this place, that is the last low tier risk. And unlucky for this place, it does mean we move on to the medium tier risks. And the first one I want to mention relates to falling. There are multiple places you could fall on this map. For example, you could fall down here. That hurt my feet. You could potentially fall down here and end up drowning. That wouldn't be good. Or how about falling down this waterfall? And God knows what will be at the bottom of that for you to die from. And why not take it a step further? What if I fell off the bridge? That wouldn't be good. I mean, the state of the bridge isn't great, let's be honest. This could be a safety feature in itself, but I'll let this one slide for now. So with that in mind, I can't avoid the safety risk that falling has. And for that reason, it gets a 50 out of 100. Okay, moving on from falling, and I'm going to move on to our next medium tier risk, which is machinery. And no, I'm not talking about the equipment machinery. I'm talking about this kind of machinery, like these two big ass wheels just pumping water and generating electricity. Yes, they might be slightly blocked off. What if you got your hand caught in that? There's nothing to stop you from sticking your hand over this banister and getting it stuck, and you're all of a sudden pulled down there. Not good. Or if you didn't fancy that, there's smaller ones here. What if I pulled this and this started turning? There's nothing stopping me from getting caught on this and then getting jammed in between this and dying. Again, not good. And those are things I can't ignore. And that is why machinery is getting a 40 out of 100. We do have one final medium tier risk, and that is the building stability of this place. I mean, let me just take you up to the top, just to show you the beginning of this. Got to remember, we are in ancient ruins. I mean, look at the place. These walls look like they could fall down on you any minute. Got to remember, these are ruins, and they're called that for a reason. I mean, there's hardly anything left of this one, which was once, I imagine, a nice big building. Not anymore. And this is just on the surface. You go down, you're looking at these caves, and I mean, you can see like they're breaking apart already. There's holes in the roof. Some entrances have even collapsed, which is a very bad sign. And you look at places like this, the floor is collapsing. How long is it until I stand on one of these and they break and I end up down there? I can tell you, probably not long. And again, you're looking at the floor here. This doesn't look safe to me. Does this look safe to you? I don't think so. I mean, look at this wall. That's not good. That is completely collapsed. And even parts like this look like this has just fallen in on itself completely and destroyed it. So I can't ignore the building integrity and structure that this place holds. It's not good. So it is going to get an overall rating of 40 out of 100. With all the medium tier risks done, we can move on to the high tier risks. And you might be wondering why I'm standing here in this big pool of water. Because Could it have something to do with, I don't know, drowning? Yes, there's a lot of water on this map. I mean, it is built on the side of a mountain in a goddamn waterfall by the looks of it. And even inside, the cave is flooding. That is not good. That's a lot of water. Imagine if a little bit more water comes through while you're in a cave. You're going to drown and you're going to die. So drowning's going on the list, definitely. And it's getting a 15 out of 100. Here we have one more high tier risk. And I think you know what it is. Yes, it's the potential to be impaled by bamboo sticks. These things are deadly. That would kill you in an instant if it caught you. We can't have that. These workers are probably underpaid and don't deserve to be impaled by bamboo spikes on the job. So with that in mind, impaling's going to get a very low score of 5 out of 100. Now, having said all that, we do have some more hazards, specifically 3 in our miscellaneous category. And the first one is quite a fun one, but it could still be a risk. And that is our good old minecart. I mean, when is the last time do you think that this thing has been tested to see if it's safe? I mean, the rails themselves don't look safe. You could fall off the side here, and at the end you just get thrown off. That's not a good look. So the minecart I would deem to be pretty dangerous. So it is going to get a 35 out of 100. Again, moving on to another fun one, but could be dangerous. You know it. It's the water jets. They're going to throw you up and you're going to land on top. And whilst they are fun, think of how much pressure this thing has to exude to throw a human up here. I mean, I'm not calling Dempsey a big boy, but he's got to be at least like 80, 90 kilo. You know, he's got that muscle on him. So if the water's strong enough to throw him up that high into the sky, that's got to potentially do some damage to the human body. So it is going to have to get an overall rating of 40 out of 100. And that leaves us with our final one, which you can tell is right in front of me. And you can tell what it is. It's the quicksand. Whilst not too dangerous, this thing will drastically slow you down. And who knows, you could eventually sink, which would not be good. So whilst not too dangerous, it does have to get a half decent ranking somewhere in the middle. So it is going to get an overall ranking of 50 out of 100. Okay, we can breathe. That is all of the hazards that I've come across. Now, you might be thinking, is there any safety in place? Now, whilst you could think that some areas could have railings, I'm not going to take that as a safety feature. This is part of the structural integrity, so that's not going to count. And at the same time, there are actually holes in the middle, and you can reach over it and it can hurt you. So I'm not counting those. And these pathetic little ropes, when half of the platform's broken, nah, they're not getting a pass either. So the only other thing that I can think of is actually safety signs. Now, there aren't many, but there are a couple of safety signs every now and again hidden around this map. Like this one, for example. Doesn't tell us what the danger is, but there is a safety sign. And the same here. This could indicate death, but doesn't tell you why or what you're looking out for that could cause death. So whilst there are a few safety signs in place, I can't give it the full 5 points because they don't actually tell you what the risks are. So instead, I'm going to give it a 2.5 as it is a safety sign, even though it doesn't potentially tell you what the fatal issue could be. So just to recap, we have equipment with a rating of 85, tripping hazards with a rating of 75, hygiene with a rating of 70, falling with a rating of 50, building stability with a rating of 40, machinery with a rating of 40, drowning with a rating of 15, impaling with a rating of 5, minecart with a rating of 35, water jets with a rating of 40, and quicksand with a rating of 50. Now, if you put all of these together, you get a mean total of 45 out of 100. Now, we do have to put the 2.5 points we got for warning signs, which gives us a 47.5. Not much better, but it's something. But Shangri-La did also get 11 safety risks, which is above the 10 plus to get a -5 points on top of this. So Shangri-La has broken a record and is now by far the lowest ranked map of this series with a grand total of 42.5 out of 100. That's impressive. I should shut this place down pretty quick. And if we look at our leaderboard, that actually puts it dead last. And not only dead last, it is 10.5 points behind Ascension. That is very impressive. Now, if you look at what that does for Shangri-La, it is just out of reach of Shut It Down with 42.5, only being 3.5 points off being completely shut down. And not only that, it is 10.5 points below Ascension, which is crazy to think. But that is why we do this series, because we need to identify these risks early and stop any risks from occurring. And that's exactly what we'll be doing next time round on our next map, which is none other than Moon. But until then, I hope you have enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and I will leave you on one final bash of the dong to sign us out. And for all you zombies lovers, stay safe. When you think of Call of Duty Zombies Moon, you think of various things. You might think about the gravity, Area 51, the excavators, maybe even the MPD, and more importantly, of course, the Easter egg. But one thing we should take into consideration is how safe can a map on the moon actually be? And of course, you know we've got to figure that out. So today we are diving deep into the depths of the moon to find out exactly how safe our crewmates are being kept when they are traversing this lovely map. Welcome to Safety Check. But just before we get into the actual safety check itself, I just want to say a massive thank you for everyone that tuned in for the last safety check of Shangri-La, and thank you to all the new subscribers and the old subscribers as well. And I just want to say we are aiming to get to 2K subscribers as our next goal. So if you do enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe, and there will be plenty more coming your way. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, we've got to do Area 51 pretty quick here because obviously you know what this place is like, especially since I'm not on the original round as well. But anyway, let's do this. First off, these massive vehicles, massive tankers, just like these ones over here. As you can see, they've got flammable signs on, which means they could explode. We don't need that at all. That could be very dangerous. So first things first, we're going to have to put vehicles down as a medium tier risk, and it's going to have to get a 50 because if they do explode, that is very hazardous. Next up on Area 51 actually relates to the floor near the vehicles. Look at this. What do you think this is? It's some sort of fuel. Fuel, as you know, is not very good for the human body. So to have it just laying around on the floor means it's spilled, which means it's dangerous. So we are going to give chemical hazards a rating of 60. Next up in the Area 51 area, and this actually applies to the moon itself as well, it's the storage situation of this map. I mean, look at that. Who stacked that like that? That's not how you should store stuff. I mean, this is a perfect example of why. Look, it's just completely fallen over. I mean, these things are on wheels, can I just say, which means they could just roll off and fall onto somebody and squish you. That would not be good. And there's more storage issues on top of the moon as well, but I don't want to take too much of your time up. So we're just going to say storage is going to be a miscellaneous category issue, and it's going to get a 70. And last but not least, we have one final issue on the Area 51 part of the map, which we cannot talk about on the moon because it is the water. And I know it's a very little bit of water, but in theory, you could drown in this. What would happen, right, if this shelving fell on you, trapped you face down in the water, and you couldn't get up and you could not lift your head up because you were trapped? You would drown. So I'm taking that as a risk, and it's going to get a 30. Okay, since we've done this area, let's get out of here, shall we? Leave this zombie-ridden area behind. Look how those bodies just jump, dude. That's quite funny. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Let's go to the main bulk of the map. Okay, so that was a bit chaotic, but now we're going to actually try and go in order from low tier risks to high tier risks. And the first low tier risk in the moon itself is tripping hazards. Yes, there is plenty around that could cause tripping hazards on this map. I mean, there's a cable at my feet right here, you know? That's not covered up by anything. You could trip over that. Not good start. You've also got loose panels just taken off the floor. I mean, you could trip over the panel itself. You could fall in here and trip on that. That wouldn't be good. And it doesn't get any better. We've got massive, I want to say tubing and metal panels that you could trip over. Never good. Even some rope you could trip over there. And like I said, this is just everywhere. I mean, look, more cables, more panels, and even in the labs you have more cables, and you even have like books and chalkboards on the floor and these like map schematic things. You could trip over all of these and they could be hazardous. So tripping hazards is going to get an overall ranking of 70 out of 100. All right, the next one, which you can tell by the state of this place, is the hygiene. I mean, look at the state of the floor. It doesn't look good, and it doesn't get any better the further you go up these stairs. I mean, look at the blood everywhere on these stairs. This is literally nearly a puddle at this point. Let's be honest. It's all over the walls. That isn't good. And considering they're trying to grow plants and stuff in here, the state of it everywhere, man, look at it. It's not good. There's too much blood on this map. So we are going to put hygiene in, and it is going to get a rating of 75 out of 100. All right, so this next one isn't as bad, but it is still a hazard, and that is equipment. Like these drills, they have just been left out in the open. Anyone can get to these and they can do some damage to themselves. That ain't good. I mean, for example, there's loads of tools that are left everywhere. That can be classed as equipment. More tools just left on the floor. And there's even shovels just left on the side here. What's like, so the tools and the shovels aren't as bad. It's still not great. And that's why it is going to be classed as a hazard, but it is only going to get an 85 out of 100. Now onto our final low tier risk of this map. And we're going to go to the labs for this one. Because as you can see, there's broken equipment on the lab table, which is not good. And it doesn't stop there, because look at the floor. We've got loads of shards all over the floor here. That could really, really cause some issues. And broken glass is sharp. Imagine if this like pierced your suit or something, and then you had a hole in your suit. That could be a whole nother problem in itself. So it is pretty important that that gets cleaned up. And the fact that it hasn't is a risk. So it is going to get a 75 out of 100. Okay, that is all of the low tier risks. And now we move on to the medium tier risks. Now I know we have already identified chemical hazards and vehicles as 2 risks on this map, but one I didn't think would be an issue is the building stability. But then you see little sections like this. This has broken apart and collapsed. Whilst not major, imagine if someone was standing under this. You'd be crushed. I mean, this is what they're meant to look like, right? And then you got sections like this that have just completely collapsed. And it's not great. And you can see like these ones are basically ready to fall over and crush someone. So it's something that needs to be addressed pretty quick. And whilst it's not severe, obviously it is a medium tier risk, which means it can't get any higher than a 60. So I am going to give it a 60 out of 100. Now the next one on the list, you probably guessed it. And you probably guessed it a long time ago, but I'm only just mentioning it now. And if I take a good old step out here and then, you know, take my mask off, I can't breathe. I'm starting to suffocate. I need to get my mask back on, otherwise I will die. Suffocation due to no oxygen isn't great, and it's definitely a safety risk. Now, I know we're on the moon. Of course, there's no oxygen, so you've kind of got to expect it, but you can't just ignore it. But because we have obviously all the domes that keep us safe and have oxygen in them, and we also have the suits, it's not going to get a really low mark, but it is still going to get a 40 out of 100. Moving on to our next safety hazard in a medium tier risk. Now this one is maybe surprising, maybe not, who knows, but it is electrocution. And if you disagree, then just look at all the electric bolts just hitting the bottom of the teleporter here. What if you got caught in one of those? And before you say, oh, you can't get caught in one of those, you can jump down from here, and specifically this angle here. So you could, if you timed it right, go through an electric charge, which would electrocute you. And on top of this, this looks like it's ready to just spit out electricity, which could potentially zap you, which wouldn't be good. So whilst it isn't all around dangerous, it is definitely going to have to be counted, and it is going to get an overall rating of 60 out of 100. So we have one final medium tier risk that we need to address. And the final medium tier risk that we're going to talk about here is actually falling. Now you might be thinking, Kian, we're on the moon. There's no gravity. How are you going to fall? Or more, if you did fall, surely you'd be okay. There's 0 gravity, so you just float down. Well, this safety sign would say otherwise. And we all know what happens if we jump down here. We've all done it in our zombies game before. And what happens when you jump down there? You die. So it does have to be a safety risk. And because falling is a medium tier risk, I cannot give this any higher than a 60 out of 100. But that is the final medium tier risk for this map. But we're not done yet. Now, obviously, we've discussed the potential to drown in Area 51. So we do have one high tier risk, but we do also have some miscellaneous tier risks. And for a matter of fact, we have 5 of them. And for this first one, I know we've definitely all done this, but it's these things. When you just run through here and you accidentally get caught on this and it didn't activate. So I'm okay. Oh no, it did. But it does this. It's our good old bounce pads. Now this thing just flings you into the air, and you have to be very precise with where you land, otherwise you could die, like I nearly did there. You could absolutely break your legs if you don't land on one of these pads. And to be honest, I'm surprised you don't, because, you know, that's still quite a high jump. But it does have to be put on there. And because it can cause so much damage, it is going to get an overall rating of 30 out of 100. Now, we've spoken about falling, and we've spoken about how the gravity should save us. But let's be honest, the gravity could also be a risk. I mean, you take one wrong bounce or one wrong jump, and you could end up floating away. Like that guy just did. That was a good demonstration, dude. But also, for example, if you ran through here and just jumped, I nearly bashed my head on that thing. And that could break my mask. That could knock me out. See, this guy's showing perfectly what's wrong. He's just stuck in the air now. He's giving me a perfectly good visual demonstration. You need a pay rise. But that just proved my point more than anything, that gravity could be an issue. And because of that, it is going to get a 50 out of 100. Our third miscellaneous category was actually storage, which we have spoken about. So we're going to skip that one quickly, as we already know the score it got. And we're going to move on to our fourth miscellaneous category, which I know you guys have all been waiting to see. And it's, of course, these bad boy excavators. We all know how much damage these cause. I mean, they take away your oxygen, and obviously these massive big old blades can kill you. And now I'm going to skip to Kino in the future, having played through all the rounds, to actually get to see these excavators in action. Over to you, Kino from the future. Thank you, Kino from the past. As you can see, the excavator has hit the dome. The biodome is not looking good right now. We cannot breathe anymore in here. What is going to happen to the plants is my concern. I'm going to put my helmet back on quickly before anything does go wrong. As you can see, there's no fixing this hole. We might be able to get the excavator out, but that's it. Back to you, Kino from the past. Thank you, Kino from the future. Now, anyway, as we were saying, excavators obviously can cause a lot of harm. So that's why they have been put down as an overall rating of 30 out of 100. And the only reason they didn't get lower was because you can avoid them, because you get plenty of warning. And whilst they are lethal, they can be shut down. So that is why it got a 30 and not lower. But that does lead us to our last safety hazard of the map. Now, if you said big old space triangle, then you were correct. Because obviously I'm talking about the MPD itself. Now, to some, this might just look like a big old triangle surrounded by some cool lightning, but it's not just that. We all know that this thing was created by the corrupted keepers, or the apothecaries. And if you know even a little bit of zombies lore, you'll know that Richtofen accidentally touched this once. And I'm saying only touched it. And he started hearing voices of corruption in his head. So that potentially means it's going to drive you insane just from touching it. And if you also know a little bit more zombies lore, you should know that if you get stuck in there, you have the ability to actually harness the power of the Dark Ether, which is a major safety hazard. Because let's be honest, we've all opened that pyramid up and we all know what Samantha does. She go a bit crazy. I mean, understandable, she was locked in a triangle, but you know what I mean. So the MPD is going to be our final miscellaneous category risk, and it is going to get a 5 out of 100 because this thing is as lethal as risks can get. But just because we've had all this doom and gloom doesn't mean that there isn't any... Hello? But there isn't any safety features on this map. And for a matter of fact, there's quite a few. The first one obviously being the suit that I'm wearing. Like we said earlier, I can't breathe without it, so I need it. This thing keeps me safe when I don't have oxygen levels, so it can be seen as a form of PPE. On top of this, for some strange reason, and I don't know why, we actually have gas masks on the moon as well. I don't know when you're going to use that, but if you need to, they're there, I guess. So we are going to get a +5 for PPE. Next up on the safety sides is actually all the railings that are in place. They are in perfect condition and they are everywhere, apart from a couple of areas that you can fall off on the ends there, but we'll give them a pass because the amount of safety rails there actually are is pretty good, I'd say. So safety rails is also going to get a +5. And going back to what we were speaking about earlier when we were talking about falling down here, we were talking about the safety sign warning you that you could fall. On top of this, there are a variety of other safety signs around the map warning you about the potential dangers, like these ones here warning you of potential electric shocks, or this one here warning you about potential chemical hazards. So there are safety signs around the map to warn you about potential hazards, and that is why it's going to get a +5 for safety sign. And then we do have one final safety feature, and it's actually this little guy, the hacker. Now, all I'm saying is, whilst you won't be able to breathe outside, you can use this guy to override the systems on Moon. Imagine if one of these doors was locked and you had to get out in an emergency and you couldn't. Well, you can use the hacker to unlock these doors and you're safe. That's a pretty good tool in my opinion. And whilst I don't think I can give it a full 5 points because you obviously cannot breathe if you have this on, which is a major downfall, it is still very handy. So it is going to get a 2.5. Well, that is all of the safety risks and safety features for this map. So just to recap, we have tripping hazards with a rating of 70, hygiene with a rating of 75, equipment with a rating of 85, shrapnel with a rating of 75, chemical hazards with a rating of 60, vehicles with a rating of 50, building stability with a rating of 60, suffocation with a rating of 40, falling with a rating of 60, electrocution with a rating of 60, drowning with a rating of 30, bounce pads with a rating of 30, gravity with a rating of 50, storage with a rating of 70, excavators with a rating of 30, and the MPD with a rating of 5. Now, if we put all these together, we actually get an overall rating of 53, but we do have to take a few things into consideration. The first being that we have over 10 hazards. With a matter of fact, we have 16 hazards in total. So that goes over our plus 10 limit, which gives the map a -5. But on the other hand, we do have 4 safety features. That being PPE, safety signs, railings, and equipment, which does give us a plus 17.5. So when you add all of these up together, you actually end up with a rating of 65.5 out of 100. Not bad for a map with 16 risks. And we can actually have a look at what that does in terms of ranking on our overall tier list. It actually puts it just above Kino der Toten in the needs work category, with it only actually being 0.5 of a point off Kino der Toten's overall ranking. So overall, not terrible. Its safety features definitely did save it though. But with that being said, that is the end of the video for today. As always, I hope you have enjoyed. And also, I want you guys to tell me what the most unexpected risk was on this map that I picked out. And I'd also like to say this took me quite a while to do because there are plenty of factors to have to consider when ranking this map. So if I did miss anything, let me know which features you think I did miss. Apart from that, I hope you are all ready to move on to Black Ops 2 now that we have finished our Black Ops 1 maps, where we will next be ranking Transit. And all I'm going to say is that's going to be a safe map, I can tell you now. But having said that, that is the end of the video. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, then like I said earlier in the video, I am trying to hit 2K subscribers, so subscribe for more content. And I leave you on the final message, like we now do on every safety check, which is stay safe slaying.